For 30 years, one man ran the largest financial fraud in human history. Not a hacker, not a criminal syndicate, a former chairman of NASDAQ. He fooled banks, he fooled regulators, he fooled his own sons. This is the story of how Bernie Madoff stole $65 billion and got away with it for 3 decades.
In 1960, a 22-year-old named Bernie Madoff started a small trading firm with $5,000 he'd saved from lifeguarding and installing sprinklers. Over the next 20 years, that firm grew into something extraordinary. Madoff wasn't just another trader, he became one of the founding architects of NASDAQ itself, at one point serving as its chairman. He was trusted. He was connected. He sat on industry panels. He advised regulators on how markets should work. To the outside world, Bernie Madoff was the guy who understood Wall Street, better than Wall Street understood itself. So when he started offering a private investment fund to a select group of clients, people didn't just want in, they begged to get in. Country clubs, Jewish charities, Hollywood celebrities, retirees who'd spent 40 years saving for this exact moment. Getting a meeting with Madoff felt like a privilege. Being rejected by him made you want in even more. And every single year, no matter what the market did, his fund returned steady gains, 10, 12%, like clockwork. That consistency should have been the first warning sign. Instead, it became his greatest sales pitch. Here's what his investors didn't know. There was no strategy. There was no trading. There were no returns being generated at all. Madoff was running what's known as a Ponzi scheme, named after Charles Ponzi, a con artist from the 1920s. The idea is simple, and that's exactly what makes it dangerous. You take money from new investors, and instead of investing it, you use it to pay returns to older investors. As long as more new money keeps flowing in than is being withdrawn, the illusion holds. Everyone sees their statements. Everyone sees their balance grow. Nobody asks questions because everybody's getting paid. Madoff called his supposed strategy a split-strike conversion, a real-sounding options trading technique that gave the whole operation a layer of technical credibility. Auditors and regulators, who looked only at the surface-level paperwork, saw something plausible. But dig one layer deeper, and there was nothing there. No trades were being executed at the volume his statements claimed. The brokerage arm that supposedly ran the strategy was, in reality, just a small office generating fake documents. For this to work, at the scale Madoff ran it, $65 billion, he needed one thing above all else: a constant, steady stream of new money. And for nearly 30 years, he got it. He wasn't undetected the whole time. A financial analyst named Harry Markopolos studied Madoff's returns in the late 1990s and reached a simple conclusion. Mathematically, it was impossible. No legitimate investment strategy could produce returns that consistent through bull markets, bear markets, and every kind of market condition for that long. Markopolos took his findings to the Securities and Exchange Commission, not once, but multiple times over nearly a decade. He was ignored. Part of the reason nobody looked closer was Madoff's own reputation. He was the industry insider. The idea that one of the architects of NASDAQ could be running a criminal operation simply didn't fit anyone's mental model of what fraud looked like. The fraud didn't hide in complexity. It hid in trust. Every Ponzi scheme depends on one thing: new money coming in faster than old money going out. And in 2008, that balance finally broke. The global financial crisis hit. Investors across the board panicked. They needed cash. So they turned to what looked like their safest, most stable investment: Madoff's fund. And they asked for their money back. Requests for withdrawals arrived at a scale Madoff could no longer fake. By his own later admission, he needed around $7 billion to cover investor withdrawals. He had only a few $100 million left. The math had finally caught up with the lie. And for the first time in nearly 30 years, Bernie Madoff had nowhere left to hide. In December of 2008, Bernie Madoff called his two sons into his office. There, he finally told them the truth. The business was, in his own words, one big lie. It was, he admitted, basically a giant Ponzi scheme. His sons, who worked in other parts of the firm, and according to their own accounts, had no knowledge of the fraud, faced an impossible decision. The very next day, they reported their own father to federal authorities. On December 11th, 2008, Bernie Madoff was arrested at his Manhattan apartment. After nearly 3 decades, the lie was finally over. The numbers that emerged afterward were almost impossible to comprehend. Investor losses were estimated at nearly $65 billion. Life savings, pension funds, charitable foundations, all gone or frozen inside a fraud that had likely been operating since the early 1990s, perhaps even earlier. In 2009, Bernie Madoff pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 150 years in federal prison. But the human cost extended far beyond Bernie Madoff himself. His son, Mark, took his own life, exactly 2 years after his father's arrest, unable to carry the weight of what his father had done. Thousands of investors who had trusted him with everything they owned spent the final years of their lives trying to rebuild from nothing. Bernie Madoff died in prison in 2021. He served just over a decade of a sentence longer than a human lifetime. But perhaps the most unsettling part of Bernie Madoff's story isn't the size of the fraud. It's how long it lasted and who fell for it. Not naive amateurs, sophisticated investors, financial professionals, people whose entire careers were built on spotting exactly this kind of fraud. If there's one lesson hidden inside $65 billion of loss, it's this. The moment returns look too consistent, too safe, too good to question. That's exactly when you should begin asking the most questions. If you enjoyed this investigation and want the next hidden story of money, power, and deception, subscribe, because this wasn't the only fortune ever built on a lie.